Welcome back, marathon runners. If it's your first marathon and you're feeling stressed, anxious, fearful, full of self-doubt about training for your first marathon, this video is perfect for you. I'm going to be going through 5 strategies to help overcome fear for your first marathon. My name's Ed. I run a physio practice in Tooting which specializes in treating running injuries, which means that over the last 11 years, I've treated lots, probably thousands of runners and helped them prepare for their first marathon. We'll go into the first one. The first one is educate yourself. Someone once told me, a mentor once told me that stress is there because of a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding. And I think this is definitely true. If you have a problem during your marathon training, but you have no knowledge, the problem could be built out of proportion and it could be a huge source of stress for you. For example, if you're brand new to running and you start to just feel a little bit of a twinge in your knee, and you immediately think, I'm injured, I can't do my marathon, I'm going to have to stop, I need to rest. That's actually going to have a really bad impact on your marathon training. But if you talk to a coach, if you talk to a physio, if you talk to people at a running club, you'll realize that running puts a lot of load through your knees. And that's why you can have twinges and little niggles that come and go, but it doesn't mean you're injured. And there's certain signs and symptoms to be aware of that would make you, should make you more concerned. But something like small amounts of pain during or after a run that go away after 24 hours is actually quite normal. And these are the kind of things that, you only know when you educate yourself. So I'm sure there's books out there, there's online resources, there's videos like my channel that help educate you. And I would recommend that you just spend time every day, a few times a week, just learning a little bit more about how it feels to do a long run, what it feels to, what's important to make sure you're successful in your first marathon, to help reduce stress when problems arise. Number 2 is talk to people. Now, this kind of goes on from my last point. If you're part of a running club, or if you're part of an online community, or if you know friends or family who've done marathons, it makes it a lot less stressful because they will give you information that the internet can't give you. Sometimes, obviously, friends and family can give bad advice, but you're going to have a bigger source of information, particularly in running clubs, because they're geared up towards helping people improve their running. So I would recommend you join a running club. The one thing to bear in mind with running clubs is being aware of your own ability so that you don't overdo it, because sometimes, again, the ego can get the better of you and you think, I'm going to do some sprints today, which I haven't done before because everyone else is doing it, and then you can hurt yourself. So just a word of caution. Number 3 is have a plan A, B, and C, and preferably D and E as well. So what I mean by this is have your perfect week. I want to train 5 times a week. I want to sleep for 9 hours per night. I want to do 2 days of strength and conditioning per week, and I want to eat like a champion. And this would be your best possible week, but also have a better and a good and an average week as well. And it's really important to have that average week, which I'll explain in a moment why. Because if you're having a busy week and you miss that gold standard of training, you need to have a plan B, because what a lot of people do is they say, this week's out, I have missed my first training session of the week, I'm going to sack off and just try to start again next week. Fingers crossed, the fact that I've failed this week will mean I'll have a better chance of succeeding next week, which again is bad logic. But having a plan B means, okay, 5 times a week of running this week, 9 hours of sleep, 2 times of strength and conditioning, and eating like a champion aren't going to happen. But I've got plan B, which is 3 times a week, sleeping a normal amount, doing 1 strength and conditioning session a week, and eating fairly well. That's going to be realistic for me this week. And if you've got lots of meetings, you've got busy family life, you've got a work trip, then it might be actually plan C, which is just 2 runs, no strength and conditioning, sleeping as much as you can, but knowing that you're not going to get as much sleep as normal. And an average would be 2 really short runs. So you've got a fallback. And the reason why this is really important is because consistency is far more important than volume and intensity. So just running 5 times a week but doing 10 minutes is better than doing one big run at the weekend, or doing 3 runs that are 1K or 2K is better than doing one 7K on the weekend, because your body doesn't get conditioned to running when you're running once a week, but for a big run, because there's no conditioning, there's no regular loading of your joints, and that means that your body doesn't adapt, basically. And if it does, then it just doesn't adapt as well than if you're doing it every day or 3 times a week, for example. So don't make that mistake, because if you lose a week of training for your marathon training, you have a finite amount of weeks. You can't replace the weeks and do more the next week. It just doesn't work like that. So the weeks that you have to prepare are really, really important, and any running is better than no running, basically. Obviously, if you're injured or ill, don't kind of hurt yourself. But you get the point I'm making. The fourth one is give yourself a break. I often say to my marathon runners that the only stress and fear and anxiety that you're feeling at the moment is coming from yourself. So when I did my marathon, I put too much pressure on myself. I looked at my friends and thought I want to get the same time as them, and I put a lot of pressure on myself. I'd also just started my physio practice, and that was taking up all my time. So I was stressed from that, stressed from the marathon training, and I didn't really enjoy the process at all, and didn't get a very good time, and also hurt myself. And if I'd taken the pressure off myself and given myself a break, been more realistic, and tried to enjoy it more, I would have probably been more successful and not only enjoyed the marathon more, but maybe reduced my risk of injury and potentially improved my time as well. So give yourself a break. Consistency is important. If you're going to put pressure on yourself to do one thing, then it has to be consistent. But if it's your first marathon and you've set yourself a goal of a sub 3:30 marathon, it's a huge amount of pressure to put yourself under, and it really is a choice of whether you want to take on that level of stress or just enjoy the process and potentially get a slightly slower time. I was just thinking then, if you did have that particular goal where you set yourself a really hard challenge, I think it would be important to make sure you've got the right support network. So get a running coach, get a physio, and join a running club, because they're all things that will reduce stress, because all of those different people are going to help improve your performance, reduce your risk of injury, educate you more, and help you enjoy the process a lot more. Number 5 is do the basics right. So I keep talking about consistency. I've kind of already given it away, but if all else fails, do the basics right. Get good sleep, do strength and conditioning, and be consistent with your running. They're the basics that you need to focus on, really. You don't need to be doing fancy things like foam rolling, massaging, saunas, if you're not being consistent with your running. And sometimes people educate themselves so much that the time they could be spending running, they're actually educating themselves. So they're talking to people so they become what I call abouters. So they know a lot about running, but they're not willing to actually put it into action. It's important to just do the basics right. And often that's the hard thing. Being consistent, changing your behavior is one of the hardest things that we can do as human beings. And that's where, again, a running coach, a running club, a physio, or an accountability partner could help you with that. Sleep is really, really important. There's a certain stat which for every hour less than 7 hours of sleep increases your risk of bone stress injuries by 20%. Make sure that you're getting good sleep, and if you're not, your training schedule needs to reflect that as well. Do the basics right. I guess you would include nutrition in there as well. If you're running well, you're sleeping well, but your diet's terrible and you're drinking lots of alcohol, it's not going to mean you get injured, or it's not going to mean that you don't do your marathon, but it's going to mean you don't recover as well. Your performance won't be as good, and that's also going to impact on your sleep as well. I hope you found today useful. I want you to email hello@instantphysio.co.uk if you'd like to do a call with me where I can have a chat with you about your marathon training or anything that you'd like me to talk about more on this YouTube channel, or leave a comment in the comments box with questions, anything you'd like to know from me, or any other videos that you'd like me to do. Thanks a lot for watching, and best of luck with your marathon training.